We have a rather nice animation which will give you actually the top 4 choices, and then and then I'll explain why it's a top 4. So if we can run the animation. So I'd like to actually announce the points on this, because I think that also might be a guide in terms of your own voting or not. Indeed, it might be a provocation not to vote the way that the jury has voted. But the votes were as follows. For Beit al-Karoum, 1 vote, so that means it didn't qualify. For Zanele Mulholi, 1 vote, which means it didn't qualify. For Sami Bejoli, 1 vote, which means Belogi means 1 vote, which means it didn't qualify. For Museum of Public Concerns, 2 votes. For Ruang Grupa, 2 votes, which meant that they both came equally in 3rd place, and we decided to put them both through to the vote, as there's enough of us here, I think, to be able to separate one from the other. For Beta Local, the Puerto Rican project, 3 votes, and for Silent University, 5 votes out of 5.
You weren't meant to say the chart, but it's okay.
But I think it gives an idea. So, we have... So we have 4 candidates from Tool to Tool, Museum of Public Concerns, the Silent University, and the Gerobak Bioscope. These are, as we know, we've had quite a discussion about them already, but I think it would be interesting now to ask the question not which is the best project, how does it match our criteria. Those are obviously considerations that I hope you'll all take into consideration when you're voting yourselves on the final winner. I'm going to ask you to vote for 1 person only. In this case, there's not a shortlist. But I would like to start and really to end the discussion with the question, who do we want to win this prize? So this prize means the visible prize, and why? So who do we want to win this prize and why? So this is a visible prize supported by the Xenia Foundation and by Pistoletto Foundation. It has a particular ambition, which is to think about how art can cross over that enclosure which isolates itself from the rest of society and connect with other, not only disciplines, but other people, other kinds of practices. But that art can be a tool, let us say that in our arte utile terms, a tool which can function outside that to offer some difference. Yeah, I think it's very important. A lot of the consideration that we've had is in terms of what allows this project to create a possibility of difference in the world which would not otherwise exist. Yeah, so what is it, in a sense, it's an imaginative possibility that it creates. Yeah? The possibility to imagine the world otherwise, perhaps the possibility to construct a social relation that otherwise could not be imagined and could not even be actualized. So this relationship between the imagination of possibility and the actualization, the functioning, seems to be very important in relation to this particular prize. So therefore we're not necessarily saying which is the best project, we're saying which should be the visible award winner. And I think that's a slightly different question. So I'd like to ask the jury in order, starting actually with Jana, to talk a little bit about the relationship between the 4, or you can pick any one to talk about, either negatively or positively, to talk about why you think one should not win or why you think one should win this visible award. Jana, could you pick one to start? I know it's unfair, but somebody has to start. You'll get a second go if you want to.
I think for me, from this selection of 4, I personally think that given the Visible Award and what it wants to do, I think Beta Local would be the project which I think would yes would be there would be a lot to gain there. Although I have to say I was also critical about some of the proposed projects, but I think it would help them to further some of the work they are doing, and I think that is important. So there you go.
Would you like to have a negative comment on any of them? I think that's also. Would you like to have a negative comment on any of them? I think that's also important to consider. Ones that you would be rather disappointed if the public and ourselves indeed, because we've become part of the public at this moment, would also would vote for. Would there be one that you'd say really don't do it for any reasons?
I think from this four, I think the Museum of Public Concern is the one that, to me, is not yet an implicated project. So I would go for at least the three that are already in one way or another implicated. So, yeah.
Great, thanks a lot, Jana.
That's it.
Tanya?
Okay.
I'm going to go around the whole of the audience, you know, with the same question.
yeah.
So prepare yourself.
So I think I will give it to. We're supposed to give the prize to? No.
I think a positive and a negative. Out of these four, which would you put at the top and which would you put at the bottom? Because it's a competition.
I think we should think when people vote and have a final decision that not always the that, for example, okay, I'm going to go case by case, maybe it's easy. I think that Beta Local is a very good, excellent project because it's a complex, intellectually, humanly, and social project that create new ways for people to interact with knowledge and with their own capability as active citizens, and to generate a kind of motor inside an area that is not being seen as a kind of social movement. So I think this is an extremely good project. Also,
and also in relation to the Visible Award itself.
Exactly. And I think the fact that it's a project that is extremely complex and it's not a one-line project makes it important that the Visible Award is given to something like this, because it makes us understand that social art practice is more complex than just making a one line about something. And it's a process, and it's effort, it's dedication, it's commitment, and it has to have some real results. And so I strongly think it will also give a lot of hope to other people doing this kind of projects that are not so visible and not so like darlings in the art world, but they are really working in the community and for those people and focusing on that, so they don't have time to make promotion of themselves. So I think it's important to value that. I think the Silent University also could be a nice project because it forces, as we have said, it will signal, if we give the prize to Silent University, it will signal the need that social art practice also push institutions to be civic institutions and not only places to store things. And also because hopefully immigrants will be valued in a better way, which is my own personal thing too. And I think the Joropat Bioskop, I also voted for this, and I think the Visible Award will be very nice for them because, again, sometimes when you have been 13 years doing something, you need this kind of recognition to give you a little hope to continue for a second wave. Because at this point, people kind of forget your project. You are not in the news, quote unquote, anymore, and having somebody who experienced the project and telling us all of these 24 hours and things really moved me, and really is a lesson for all of us to see this. I don't know. This is what I think.
Thanks a lot, Tanya. Thank you. I think we'll go around and then I'm going to go to the public. So.
Okay. I'm only going to speak about the Silent University, and I'll tell it through a story. Recently, I had an opportunity to meet a minister for our government who was both Minister for the Arts and the Minister for Immigration. Just before that meeting, my 9-year-old daughter asked me about why there's so much discussion on the radio and on the TV about refugees. I tried to explain the two sides of the story that is often reported in the newspapers and on the radios and on the TV to her. She listened and said, "But Daddy, if people want to come to our country, we should think that's a good thing." And I said, "Why, darling?" And she said, "Because they are bringing good things to our country, and there's more of them to help us." And I thought to myself, it's a very simple point, that people are bringing good things, and that this is something that might add to our country. Now, that, of course, is the simple narrative that is absent in all the popular discourse that exists in my country about immigration. The immigration story is about order versus chaos, about accommodation versus burdens, about the destruction of a way of life or the costs of resettling people, and so on and so forth. And the worst case scenarios are the violence that's done to these people through detention and through displacement, etc., etc. Now, what I think is very powerful about the Silent University project, apart from everything that we've said previously, is also that it turns the attention back to the host. It turns the attention back to the host in order to think about the violence we do through silence, the violence that we do through ignoring the good that is brought to us, and the violence that we do by rendering that potential, that capacity, that knowledge invisible. And if one project can make visible something that we've learned to become aloof to, inaudible, and to have rendered, mute and silent, then I think that would be a great outcome.
Thanks a lot.
Well, Nico said it all for me. I was already preparing my, for me it's clearly the Silent University also. And I may repeat myself because I really think that it is a very novel way of treating knowledge as an artistic material. And even just for that, I think it's expanding our understanding of artistic practice, even more so when it's related to a subject that is highly political and that affects us on a daily basis. We may acknowledge it or not. We are complicit of a lot of this silencing. And this is a reality that is not only real in the Western world. I mean, most of the refugees are within the territories. The high majority, and these are statistics that are true, I'm not good at figures, but I know that the high majority of refugees are not those who make it to the West, are those who are migrating in the neighborhood, in the
Continent.
In the continent. So, be it in Africa, in Latin America, in Asia, and so on. So, and when it comes to the West, only really higher educated people can really make it here, and generally. So, and I really think that in context to the Visible Award, Nikos already said it, to make that visible and to draw people's attention to the fact that be them refugees, be them migrants, that this group of people is an enrichment. Beyond the fact that it is an enrichment, they come with highly educated most of the time, and that education cannot be applied, cannot be consumed, cannot be used due to structural and prejudice, basically, that is at play. Because I don't really think that language is so much of an issue. One can learn a language, one can have programs to integrate people when the language is a barrier. So, and to talk about, that's why I think that the Silent University should win the award, and also the capacity or the potentiality of this project to be reproduced, to be reenacted in different places, with or without the artist. Basically, he can draw a protocol that can be used and applied by other people in different places, and also have kind of their own kind of lives, their own reality within the different kind of contexts that they would then find themselves in. So, I'm very, very seduced by Beta Local, from tool to tool. But I think that if we are to establish a hierarchy of importance and of urgencies, the Silent University is addressing an issue that I think is more important than what Beta Local are doing, even though they do it in a very, a very good way. So.
Thanks.
Yeah.
That's great. Thanks a lot, Koya. Michelangelo.
Yeah, I think that the Silent University is is the most exciting project for me, because it's has the same meaning of visible, that is transfer the invisibility, and in no voice in voice, no power in kind of power, and in the relation with what for me is the basic concept of politics is to love difference as a base, and putting this idea of different knowledge together, and to create this communication of knowledge. It's an enrichment that it has now. It can go both sides, everywhere. Both sides. We have a double direction. Huh? We have two positions. It's the country where you are and the country where you were. And see, this is what is important. It is the great necessity of communication and friendship, as you said before. I think that finally artists has to forget to be unique and alone. Artists has to think that they have to think number two, basically. Number two. And with the number two together, you make the new dynamic that is the third element that never existed before. And this is the element of creativity. We have to put always two things together and in minimum. And when you start with that, you create a social dynamic, that it becomes 2, 4, 6,000 millions, but starting from 2. And this, I think, and this university, it can be a good principle to offer the people to be combined and teaching, because university means knowledge. It means creativity. It means universal. Voila.
Perfect. Thank you, Michelangelo. Thank you to all the jury members. I think it's interesting that two favorites are kind of emerging out of the four. That's the Silent University and Beta Locale. One of which is distinguished by its simplicity in a certain sense, the clear offer of a model which can be applicable, as Nikos put it earlier than his extraordinary plaidoyer just now, as something that could be applied in almost any major city throughout the globe. And the other one, Beta Locale, which is in a sense distinguished by its complexity. So in other words, by the fact that everything is connected, and somehow the forest is connected to the walking around Puerto Rico, to the production of clothes. And this interconnection is in some ways the opposite of the Silent University, and yet they both result in some complex relationships, but from different means. So we have two extremes, perhaps.
Yeah, can I say something? But also, I think it's very symptomatic of exactly where this practice is at the moment. There is one side that is going through the institution of art to be realized, which is Silent University at this point, and there is another practice that goes alternative and create its own alternative to the institution that exists, which is Beta Locale. So I think this is very symptomatic.
And I think that's also about a certain of the possibility of reform within the existing structure, and the possibility of setting up parallel structures which would eventually, I think, come to replace the existing structures.
Exactly.
So it's about the fact the existing structures are inadequate, which I think is the key point that we're all addressing here. You know, what we have is not good enough, whether it's museums or art spaces or the art system and its distribution. If that's not good enough, how do you get it better? How do you make it possible for it to do the things that we need to do it? And one is to run it entirely in parallel, independently, and the other is to try and reform the system as it exists. Both are valid, I think, and I think that's what we're saying in these two structures, that both are valid and realistic and appropriate forms of approach to that question. But the inadequacy of the current system is very important, I think, to mark as well. I'd like to go to
Maybe
the
we should
public
have two
before
prizes.
we go to one.
Maybe we should have two prizes, no?
Well, two prizes are also a possibility. I did get an SMS from Bina Choi, who was here in the morning,
yeah.
and I'd just like to read it out, actually, because it's quite an interesting one from Bina, where she says, I offered her actually a vote in lieu of her going away, because she had been for most of the day and then she had to go. And she said, I'm thinking of a quite outstanding commonality in the selection, making things viral, creating a movement while reappropriating digital tools. What aesthetics it generates is something to discuss, but concerning today, I face the impossibility of selecting one winner, which in turn addresses the system of awarding and getting a winner. And I'm thinking whether it would be meaningful to think of creating a temporary commons by asking what assets and capitals each project organizers have in relation to the different contexts of operation, and accordingly whether 25,000 can be distributed over different projects. It may need more time to research, yet sharing this thought is how I would like to use my vote that you generously gave me. I think that's a complex, I'll come to you in a minute, I think it's a complex idea, but maybe it's also in parallel to this award that we could see whether the 10 shortlisted finalists, or even these 4, could communicate with each other and see what commonalities and what commons might be generated within the projects themselves. Just to see that as an exercise seems to me for Judith and Matteo to be an interesting process to follow. Can I turn to the public? I've got a question over there.
Thank you. To say the Silent University is something that, for me, I also think it's wonderful, and should put a lot of attention on that. But I think they get it by themselves. So I just throw in a coin and say, like, okay, give the award to them and the money to a project that is really needs it.
Very nice. Very nice proposal, and we're going to carry that.
It happens sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I'm sure Ahmed would be delighted. But no, I think that's a really nice proposal. I need to think about how we could handle that in terms of the voting, but I think it's a very, very nice proposal. Any other comments or suggestions that radically change the whole process of the prize? They're very welcome.
I think just a comment. I think the money issue is very relative, because I mean anybody could say, okay, maybe one of these projects can get another grant in 1 month. So I wouldn't make somebody like more in need than others, because we don't really need about their economy, and if they are here, they all need this money. So I wouldn't because otherwise we enter in this kind of stereotypes, who needs it more than others, which I don't think it's appropriate. And another thing, the reason why we do it public is also because we want to offer the project visibility, and also to work in the coming months to eventually, if we manage to get other grants that we can perhaps distribute. But this is something we are working on. So of course, it's interesting to know that other people think that there should be other grants connected to Visible.
And it's also something to think about for next year as well. We can get a new foundation on board, and then we can do the prize for the best one and the prize for the one that needs the money the most.
You're welcome to help.
With pleasure. Are there any other comments? Does everybody know how they're going to vote? If anybody's in doubt and they'd like some clarification of any points, we'd be happy to hear. Otherwise, we might move to the voting. People happy if we move to the voting? Do they feel they've got enough information? Yes, please.
One question maybe to you, Matteo. Why has the audience, I mean, I totally enjoyed this whole structure, you know that. That's why I came. I think it's wonderful to involve an audience with the jury process. But why have we not been entitled to select the 3 best projects and only 1?
This has been...
I wanted to vote for 3 projects.
Okay.
But to be fair, Gary, you would have to vote for 1 in the end, because there is only 1 winner. So I mean, rather than going through a process of 2 public votes, which that would have required, it seemed better to use the jury and the discussions that we had to some point. Otherwise, it would have been a pointless conversation in some way, because the vote would have gone immediately to the public. Logistical, but also to give a focus to our discussion as a jury, so that the jury had a role and the public had a role, rather than it being one or the other. So it was to try and combine, to give a function to both stages. So the public ultimately has the choice, but already 10 were made, now ends up with 4, and now it's over to you, and we become the public. We also have our 1 vote, I would like to say.
But also I feel in terms of giving power, it's much better that we were kind of the depository of everybody's comment and make kind of like a conclusion on everybody's comment. And then you have the actual power to decide who is the winner. I think the audience, this is stronger, I guess, no? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if a majority of you wrote in another project, we would have to accept that, but I wouldn't recommend it. Anything else? Otherwise, we'll go. I'm looking around, I can't see anybody begging to say anything, so that means that everybody is satisfied. The wonders of democracy. We move to the voting system. I'm going to hand over to Matteo, I think, or to you, to Matteo, to tell us how we're going to vote.
Yes. No.
So now we're all equal.
It's not public.
Except for Matteo and Judith, who don't get a vote.
We are the only ones completely, without a vote. No, logistically speaking, basically we ask you to write the vote. And you can leave the room. Judith and I will be at the door, so you can give us the card. And you can go towards the dinner, and then the announcement of the winner will be made in the dinner place.
In the Les locale, which
yes.
I think somebody will take you up to, yeah. And we finished 4 minutes late in the end, so I'm very happy to say that as a chairman, my timekeeping was excellent. Thank you very much. Where are the voting slips? Does everybody have a voting slip?
There's only one thing actually, because we didn't plan this too well, I have to be honest. And the thing is that the live streaming would need to know. So
I'll come down and announce to the live streaming before I go upstairs.
okay, so we do announce it before here, and then we come upstairs.
Yeah, but we'll just do it 1 second.
It's sort of just to facilitate that while you leave your votes, so that it's easy.
But where are the voting slips? Where are the voting? You've got them all. Okay, great, excellent. Very good.
But we don't have pens.
Yeah.
Anybody want a pen?
No,
Can you share
I
pens
want to
with
suggest something, which is, again? Okay. I want to suggest something, which is maybe we can do like counting the votes, like instead of saying the final one, saying, okay, this one won, this one won, this one won, this one won. No? No?
No, I think.
Okay.
No, because
just to make transparency that we're not like faking.
I will bring all the votes
You know?
up, and if anybody wants to check them, they're very welcome to do so.
Okay. Okay.
Oh, that's a
I don't want
surprise.
to be accused that we, at the end, after all this transparency, make fake. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, who do we give it to? Oh, yes. So if you can give your slips folded or visible, invisible or visible, to Judith or Matteo, who are just waiting at the door. So please vote in here, and then when you leave, hand the vote over to Matteo or to Judith, and we'll gather them all, stay down here and count them. Thank you very, very much for coming. Thanks for your patience.
This is so silent that it disappeared.
Hello to those of you at home. You're hearing this first. Actually, it will be announced elsewhere to the rest of the audience that was actually here that voted. We had a total of 40 votes cast, and the winner, and the only thing we're going to announce today, the winner is the Silent University. So they, Ahmed Oyut and the Silent University will receive €25,000 to develop the project in Paris and also to support the developments in London, Stockholm, and in Berlin. So to Ahmed, if you're watching, very, very good congratulations. And to all the other projects, thank you very, very much for submitting. I hope you enjoyed the debate. Sometimes it might have been critical, but I hope in any case it was stimulating, or you could at least disagree with the comments that you heard. And to all of you who were watching today, I know there was some disruption, so I'm sorry about that, but to all of you that were watching, I hope you enjoyed everything, and we will see you again in a couple of years, or if not, in some other occasion in the future. Thank you very much indeed. Goodbye.